Hi, I'm Laura Stover, Director of HR Advisory Services. Today's topic is 5 common overtime mistakes. As you're probably aware, employees who are classified as non-exempt are generally eligible for overtime pay when they work over 40 hours in a work week. And overtime pay is equal to time and a half an employee's regular rate of pay. Now, sometimes it can be tricky and challenging to figure out how and when to actually pay overtime. So let's take a look at some common mistakes. Number 1, averaging hours over multiple work weeks. A work week's defined as 7 consecutive 24-hour periods that's determined by the employer, and overtime must be paid within that work week. For example, if you have an employee who works 50 hours one work week and 30 hours the next work week, you cannot combine those 2 work weeks to avoid paying overtime. That employee would be due overtime in the work week that they worked the 50 hours. A second common overtime mistake is failing to pay for unauthorized overtime. Basically, if the employer is aware or has reason to believe that the work was done, then the overtime must be paid. And this includes both on-site and remote employees. And if you have people who are working unauthorized overtime, you want to make sure that you're handling that through the corrective action process. A third common mistake is paying overtime based on an hourly rate instead of the regular rate of pay. The regular rate of pay includes things like commissions, non-discretionary bonuses, shift differentials, on-call pay, as well as other types of compensation. And if you're not paying the overtime based on the regular rate of pay, you may actually not be paying the employee enough. A fourth common overtime mistake is failing to pay for missed meal periods. Generally speaking, if an employee takes a break of at least 30 minutes, then it can be unpaid, but they have to be relieved of all duties and responsibilities. For example, if you have a receptionist who likes to eat lunch at her desk but is still taking phone calls, that employee would still need to be paid. It's important that all those hours are tracked because employees are not permitted to work off the clock. And finally, a fifth common overtime mistake is trying to pay non-exempt employees for paid time off instead of overtime hours. You may have heard of this as comp time or compensatory time. This is actually not permitted in the private sector. Only public sector employers are allowed to use comp time. So make sure that you are not trying to give employees time off instead of paying overtime. And of course, you can always adjust an employee's schedule within a work week to avoid paying overtime. These are just a few examples of how trying to pay overtime can go wrong. You need to remember, as always, that there are federal and state laws that apply, but we really encourage you to take the time to review your pay practices and make sure that you are recording and tracking all hours and paying your non-exempt employees correctly. And of course, as always, you can reach out with questions. Thanks for watching.